Hello, my name's Danny and I've just recently purchased a cheap power supply tester. You can pick these things up on Amazon for about between 10 and 15 quid. And I essentially bought this thing so that I could test my power supply units because one of them was giving me problems. I thought to myself, well, if I just purchase one of these cheap things, it would be a quick and simple way to test your power supply cables and the power supply itself, rather than using a multimeter, which is more complicated because you need to know what all the pinouts are and it's a lot more hassle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I use this power supply tester to test my power supply and how it works really. So let's make a start, shall we? So I've connected it via a 24-pin cable to my RM850 power supply, and I'm going to switch it on and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's see what we've got. We've got a blue LCD display with two rows of I suspect power supply voltages. So we've got two 12-volt rails, one at 11.8, one at 11.9, a 5-volt standby, 5-volt normal volt, and 3.3 volts. So we've only got, it seems like, one voltage rail which is flashing L.L. Let's see what that means. One of the irritating things about this device is the packaging, and that this device came with not one single sentence of instructions on how to use it. So it's flashing L.L. What I assume is that it's not getting a voltage probably on that rail. L.L. probably means low. So I'm going to pop off onto the internet and see if I can find any information about this. Okay, I found out that you also need to plug in either the 4-pin or 8-pin connector that you usually plug into your motherboard, and we'll switch it back on again and see what happens. Okay, so now we've actually got 12.0 volts on the rail that was previously flashing L.L. So looking at these values, everything is in range. PSG, by the way, means is reading 290 milliseconds. So if it's less than 500 milliseconds, it means that the power supply has switched itself on and is ready to serve power. And according to this device tester, everything is fine on this PC. Everything is within the specified ranges, so that's good. So this would indicate to most people that the power supply is working reasonably well. Okay, so let's try testing my Molex connector. Okay, so I've plugged it in and there is no display for peripheral cables on the LCD, but what you do get is a series of lights. So we've got two lights, two green lights indicating positive 12 volts and positive 5 volts. So the Molex connector is supplying a 12 volt signal and a 5 volt signal, which is what it's supposed to be doing, so that's good. But note that you could also test SATA ports. You also can test the 8-pin, 6-pin and 4-pin ports, of course, and you can also test a DVD or floppy drive port. Don't try to test more than one peripheral cable at a time, because if you do, you're likely to get invalid readings on those green LEDs. My first conclusion about this device is its name, and I would take issue with the name power supply tester because it's not. It should be called power supply voltage indicator, because what its real job is and what it really does is give you a neat, cute little readout of all of the voltages, essential voltages that's coming out of your power supply. So it's giving you 12 volts, 5 volts and 3.3 volts. But what it can't do is run a series of tests that an engineer would do with, like, I don't know, £4,000 or £8,000 worth of hardware to figure out what's wrong with a power supply that is not behaving correctly or behaving erratically, or many of the other reasons why a power supply will not work correctly within your system. besides all of that, this is a really neat device to have, in my opinion, and for only £10, I mean, you can't even buy 2 pints of beer with that nowadays. So it's a really little handy piece of equipment to have lying around just in case you do have any issues, because the first thing you're going to check anyway is the voltage values on your power supply. So is it worth it? Yeah, of course it is. For 10 quid, for a tenner. It saves you a lot of time. You don't actually need a multimeter, and you don't need to, look at search the internet or books for pin outs on 24 pin or 20 pin ATX cables. So yeah, a good bargain.